I'm Kevin Kuchar Jr., and today I will be demonstrating for our art video showcase. Team PeaceAPi's game takes place in a high-tech facility and factory that manufactures combat robots and weaponry. The player and his companion are products of this facility and are trying to escape it to earn their freedom. Throughout the gameplay, the player can expect to experience factory-like conditions and settings, with high-tech, near-futuristic machinery and powering up and powering down systems. The setting will be exclusively indoors and all in this high-tech lab setting, with sterile flooring, metallic-looking walls, detail features such as vents, conduits, and wiring, and other lab and machinery-related objects. This first scene in the tutorial level is a good example of how things operate and function in the game. Here we have our key doors, which we hope can be upgraded to a high-tech sliding mechanism. Here we have an attack switch that operates as a unlocking or locking or activating or deactivating object. This room displays our destructible objects, which can sometimes be found storing other objects such as health kits or currency. Below the primary floor level in all of our levels should be a field, which we hope will look like a plasma or electrical field, which does damage and teleports the player back to their checkpoint. Coloring of this object should be blue and white swirls, more cloudy looking. The climbing points displayed here should stand out to the player like they do now. How they visually appear in game is being left up to the artist's discretion. The melee enemies of the game, like the ones circling here, should be less advanced models of the player character, featuring dangerous-looking claws, while the ranged enemies of the game will, in kind, be less advanced-looking models than the follower, being drones that hover in the sky via copters, with a gun mounted underneath of it. Here you can see a demonstration of the entrance and exit elevators found in each level. Aesthetically, they should be entirely cased in glass and operate via electromagnetic system. We're hoping that the interactable objects, as shown here, can be changed to look more like a control panel, somewhat like an iPad sitting on a stick. Here we can see an example of the retractable walls, which aesthetically can look like the surrounding walls of the rest of the level. Shown here, you can see the currency in our game, which we hope to be changed into what looks more like data packets or computer chips. Something technical. Here we find the push blocks, which can be manipulated by the player. In-game, they need to look like metallic cubes, and maybe even storage containers. To the left of the screen, you can see our enemy docking stations, designed to store the enemies when they're offline. Here we have the spike traps designed as a security measure against the player trying to escape. Simulated with how it glitters now, it should alert the player that this is a hazard. The spikes operates via metal spikes that shoot up through the floor and damage the player. Here we can see our explosive asset, a volatile canister which explodes on impact. Here we find an example of our destructible wall, which should look slightly different than a comparable wall so that it stands out to the player and tells them that this wall can be destroyed. Here we have our explosive push block, which should look and operate like the push block fused with the explosive. Here we can also example the item spawner prefab, which will be combined with the functionality of the teleport. It should look similar to what it does, having metal spokes shoot up through the floor, and a visual effect being displayed as it spawns another item into play. Here we can see the explosive block production machine in action. It should look like a very high-tech, futuristic conveyor system, converting the push blocks into explosive push blocks. It should have an incredible visual display as it is destroyed by the player. The explosion you caused in the previous level has caused catastrophic failure throughout the entire facility, flooding every level below it and burning chemicals, and causing massive damage throughout the entire scene. Displayed to the right is the block crusher prefab. It should operate on the electromagnetic track as the moving platforms. However, it should look like a giant metallic block designed to crush the player against the wall. It was made by the facility that created you as a security measure in case of a breach. Currently, it's passing over a floor switch on the floor. To the left, you can see atom blocks. They should look exactly like the block crasher, as they are the same defense system that's been knocked off of their rails by the catastrophic destruction. Now they float back and forth on the pools of chemicals below them. Here we have the crasher level. Like the level before it, it has been completely destroyed by the explosion you caused in the explosive level. Here you can see the block crasher. Like the atom block, it is a block crusher that was knocked off of its magnetic rail system, only these ones are much more volatile. Stepping on them causes them to become unstable and explode off in a direction like a rocket. If the player stays on them too long, they will be destroyed. Next, we can see the dead zone chaser. If the player does not make it out of the facility in time, you will be met with the destruction of the facility. A giant shockwave of flame and electricity will be washing over the field, killing everything in its wake. Upon completing the game, the character should be congratulated as the final scene plays. It shows the player escaping the facility and the explosions and running off into a forest to his freedom. I'm Captain Kucher, thank you for watching.